podcast with the Diva, Danielle.
What it do? What it do? Good evening, everyone. It is I, Diva Danielle. I'm in the building, baby. How y'all doing today? You know, let me just first say it is really refreshing to be back here, to be amongst my followers, colleagues, friends, nonprofiters. It's really great to see everyone today. Take a deep breath and exhale a negative. That's how we're going to start this session. We're going to talk about the importance of gratitude within our community. That's what this segment is about. But before I begin, I know y'all checking me, right? Y'all checking, my new do, right? Let me tell you something. I got hooked up by these brothers. I want to make sure I get the name right. It's called Cut Above Par Barbershop. They're located at 4221 Pleasant Valley Road in Virginia Beach. My barber's name is Sean B. And baby, you see how, he's making the Diva, he putting it down. The Diva looking good. I ain't looking my age. I'm looking cute. So y'all get a chance. Please go out there and support this barbershop. Very good group of brothers, former military, and they are awesome guys. I mean, they do a lot of things in the community from what I've learned from them. And I hope you spend some time with them. Again, it's Cuts Above Par Barbershop, located at 4221 Pleasant Valley Road in Virginia Beach. Check out Barber Sean B. He's definitely on point. So, got a lot of stuff going on. Kids are graduating, senior proms. I mean, people are getting married. There's so much going on. First day of summer is about, but we need to still be about our community. And that's the most important thing. So I want to start off by saying gratitude in the community is when you are grateful for all those in your community that plays it forward. We must be able to remember that we do not become the people that we are by ourselves. It takes a community. We are raised by so many different people. We're influenced by so many different people, and those are considered communities. So be grateful for everyone in your community. Let them help you develop your narrative so that your narrative can stand in the forefront and you can learn so much about who you are, where you're going, and where you need to be. So that's what I want to talk about today. First off, I'm definitely happy to be a part of the Ladies Network, which is an umbrella under the Swag Network. So, y'all give love to the Swag Network, but the ladies run this, so check it out. We are doing some big things, because women are phenomenal. So I want to talk about the person we have on the show tonight, which I'm so excited. When you meet someone that has a great energy, a great, steadfast commitment to growth and empower others, someone that is really community focused and is really looking to develop the way how we interact civilly, socially, and with government. I think it's very important that everyone here take a moment to jot down some of the information that we're going to give out today, because this information is viable for us to continue to have our communities to be empowered, to be inspired, especially when we're looking at elections that will be coming up soon. We're looking at those that are representing us in government and having a say about a lot of the things that we're uncomfortable about. When we talk about DEI, that's been a hot topic, and how it affects certain communities and how we move forward through that and learning the lessons from that. We're talking about the increase with these tariffs, that the government is getting ready to put on us. How does that affect us economically and our households? And how do we move forward through that? And what do we need to do? The importance of social justice. When there is something wrong and we need to be able to put the behaviors that have done something that affects our community, and what are the consequences behind that. So this young lady, I've had the pleasure to know, and I'm so excited because she just recently supported one of my events, the I Love Me Too conference, was a great supporter, came out there and gave it 100%. She is a poli-sci graduate from Norfolk State University. Behold, the green and the gold, baby. You know what it is. She is also very active in her community. She is a community advocate that focuses on workforce development, reentry programs, and she wants to reduce the harm of things that are done in our communities, especially in public health. So I definitely want you guys to join me as I welcome the Civic Engagement and Advocacy Chair for the Urban League Hampton Roads Young Professionals, Miss Alana Evans. Good evening, good evening.
Guys, how y'all
Hello,
doing
Queen. How are
today?
you today? Welcome to the Ladies Network and the Dynamic Perspective. You know me, I'm the Diva Danielle, so we just gonna keep it funky, babe. We gonna do
Man,
what we do.
that's Auntie
Okay?
Danny. Y'all already know.
Okay. So, I don't think a lot of people really realize the importance of what the Urban League does here in Hampton Roads and why the young professionals is so important because we need to capture that energy while they're young, right? We need to
Yes,
give them that exposure. We need to give them that education. So, tell us a little bit about what that does and how it encompasses the growth of our youth.
yes. So for Urban League Young Professionals, it really is, well, to start off, Urban League is the second oldest civil rights organization. It is only second to NAACP. Whereas NAACP may focus on 90% advocacy and 10% programs, Urban League really focuses on 90% programs and 10% advocacy. So all of their programs are free. And that is, one of my biggest things that I've really been trying to promote is for us to get the help that our community needs. At my day job and what we do a lot of data collection on demographics that are high risk for HIV. And so what we end up seeing in that data is, things that are needed from a holistic level when we talk about public health. So a lot of that could be reentry into society, that could be housing, that could be access to healthcare, education, um, about healthcare. And so for how I tie all of that into Urban League Young Professionals is really just focusing on building and developing programming within the community that I've already seen in the data that's needed. So that's how I tie it back to that. I'm running for president this year also. So,
Okay, look here, president in the house. Whoop whoop.
we
Won't you do it? Won't you do it? Y'all know what it is
will speak it
already.
into existence.
Okay. I love it. I love it. So now the world is changing,
Mhm.
right? People are concerned about public health. They're even talking about cutting funding for a lot of the public health that is necessarily needed in our communities. How does that affect you going out and being an advocate for that when we know that the government is having a stronghold on something that is so critical, especially to people of color and how we move and grow within our families?
So one of the things that I'm very blessed to be in the position is at my job at the LGBT Life Center, as their lead interviewer for the National HIV Behavioral Surveillance Study. So, like I said, I do a lot of data collection on different things like um, people who are having sex, like risky sexual behaviors, drug use, like I said, access to healthcare, the houseless, and individuals who are reentering into society. Some DSM-5 questions, basically like just asking where's your mental state? And even though my degree is in political science, once I stepped into this role, you start to realize just how political public health is
Mm-hmm.
and how everything ties together.
Yes.
And so, why my biggest thing is reentry, workforce development, housing, food insecurity is because oftentimes, when we talk about maternal health, if we just keep it simple with maternal health, how could a mother ever get to their appointments if they don't have access to like a car?
Absolutely.
Or how could they, oh yeah, you need to take prenatal vitamins, but they don't have access to healthy foods. Like it's the smallest thing on the smallest level that we don't, I don't want to say we don't consider, but that people need help with and assistance with, that really goes into a bigger picture, because once I support the person, right, where I'm not choosing between this Uber to get to my doctor's appointment or paying for my light bill, right? Once we look at the whole of the person from a holistic perspective, we look at health, public health from a holistic perspective, then we can begin to understand like these problems don't just start at this grand scale level. It really starts at every day I wake up. Do I have food in my house? Are my lights on? You know, do I have access to a bus stop? Do I have access to a grocery store and not just a little bodega on a corner or something like
Mhm.
that, you know? So
Yes.
that's, you know, that is definitely a big worry for what's going on in this political climate, unfortunately.
And you know, I want to kind of go a little bit deeper in that. So they always say that one thing affects the other because it makes a mushroom, right? So let's talk about reentry and workforce development. We don't meet people where they're at because society looks at that person as, oh, you did this, therefore you're not eligible to get this, or you shouldn't receive this. You know,
Hmm.
we don't see how we're supposed to be able to graciously see the change in a person and extend an olive branch that's just not in the Bible, right? So if we call ourselves Christians, let's call it what it
Hmm.
is. If we call ourselves Christians, we're supposed to be able to move past what that person has done and see the greater good of that person, right? But
Hmm.
when you look at businesses and you look at services, the first thing they see is what the person has done. So it's another labeling or stereotypical way how we look at things. So first we go from being a black man
Yeah.
to now a felon to now unemployed, now homeless. You know, we put all these titles on, and then we wonder why the mental health of people don't go the way how we
Right.
expect, or why can't they pick themselves up and get it together, but you've put all these other labels on people, right?
Right.
You look at women of color. If they're not married, oh, okay, she's a single mom. Oh, she's getting assistance. Oh, she's making these babies. Oh, she's living in, public housing. Okay, but the single mom may have 3 kids and say, you know what, I need some help. I want to better myself. If you help me, I can help them. We in the government, I say it so freely and I mean it, we make people very dependent on them. And then the minute we get mad with what we don't like, we pull the rug from underneath them.
Ain't it an abusive relationship?
Okay. I'm telling you, that is one that drag out, pull your
Hmm.
hair type of issue. And then you make all these other mental health issues happen. Right?
Hmm.
I have seen I don't know if you've seen a lot of things on social media where you'll have a person handing someone a sandwich or something, but they
Yeah.
want to take the picture
Yeah.
to validate and then glamorize the strife that someone is going through. At
Hmm.
what point do we see people as people, even in workforce development? My thing has always been workforce development is supposed to be meeting a person where they're at. So if Johnny's coming in and Johnny's like, look, I don't know how to do anything, but if you give me an opportunity and you train me, I got you. And you feel that energy, you see that passion. We're going to pass up Johnny because
Yes.
Johnny doesn't have anything, but we're going to take Mark, who has everything, but can't come to work every day. Right.
Yeah.
So, it's like, why do we put ourselves in those situations? Because it ends up affecting the public health, which affects the family. And
Yes.
then we look at statistics, right? We look at
Hmm.
acts of violence, we look at crime rates, we look at all these different things because of one little nugget that has grown into this massive boulder. And now we're looking at the individual as if it's their fault with no contribution from the outside.
I just want to take a moment to say, meet people where they at.
That's it.
That's
Okay.
it. Like that. That's it. That right there.
That's it. Meet them where they're at.
Where they at. Where they are at. Whether that's on a physical, spiritual, mental, emotional level. Meet people where they at. Right.
Mm-hmm.
Like I said, with my job at the LGBT Life Center, it really gave me a grand, it really gave me like a grand view, right?
Okay.
Because numbers don't lie.
True.
And when I have to, read past data, current data, and then going into future data to say, okay, how can I improve this survey every year, right? And you can find these statistics online. It's on the CDC website. It's NHBS, National HIV Behavioral Surveillance Study, right? And you can find our field site for Hampton Roads. And so how we do our survey is very different because we go and we meet the people. So we have 3 cycles. We have high risk heterosexuals, we have men who have sex with men, and then we have people who inject drugs.
Okay.
Right? And when, like I said, taking all of that information, we're meeting the people where they are at. So, for example, last year we were at Minority Aid Support Services and we partner with the Syringe Exchange Program. A lot of people don't know that we have a syringe exchange program out here, right? And one way that we kind of came together and it helped them out because it gave them the numbers is because we're pulling people who are injection drug users into our survey. We also are connecting those people to resources that they may need. So to tie all that back into what you said, a lot of our system is very punitive. It doesn't focus on rehabilitation at all. You want to punish the person, but it's kind of like you spanking a kid, but you didn't really tell them what they got hit for. Not that we should be beating our children or anything, but it's kind of like, what did I get? Like, how you didn't give me a method to improve, right? Because we have to give people the space and grace to improve. None of us get it right. People think that sometimes I think we think about things in a very one-dimensional way. Ooh. Where it's, oh, that person is a crackhead. That person is a drug user, right? I've spoke to people. I remember, and it's not my favorite cycle, but it pulls at my heartstrings a lot, is the injection drug user cycle, because I've spoken to 64-year-olds who have been injecting since they were 12 years old. 13, 12 years old. Their mom passed away at 6. They were the oldest of their 5 siblings, right? They're in and out of foster care. They're doing what they can do to survive. And especially if they following somebody else off of the street, right? They're only following what they see and what they know. You only know but so far outside of your own backyard.
Right. So because it's the fear of the taboo or the trauma. It's either the taboo or the trauma. You're kind of stuck right in between those two.
Back and forth. Right. And then you have to deal with constant rejection. Rejection is, the spirit of rejection and envy. Because you could sit up there and you could look at somebody else, have everything that you want, and you would have no idea how to get it just based off of how you grew up. What did you see, right? How could I possibly do better than what I already know? And all I know is this.
Right.
Right. And so when we take a already punitive system that sets its people up for failure, even, for example, you go into the school to prison pipeline system, you got to think about it. That's why I say everything is very, it's all connected. People, they said, statistic is, how do they know how many prisons to build in a certain area? And you would take the test scores of 3rd graders, and that's how you know how many prisons to have in that area.
Nobody really understands that, because I've had that conversation before. And why do you say 3rd graders? I said because it sets the tone for private industry to come in and build a prison versus building a state hospital or community hospital that will help people get better, or a shelter for those that are transitioning from domestic violence, or a sober living house for those that are trying to come into recovery. But you will make a prison and make money off of that industry because you're waiting for that 3rd grader to become Billy Badass. Absolutely.
If you look at the 13th Amendment, even in the 13th Amendment, it is legalized slavery. Like,
Yes,
it's legalized slavery.
and I say when people start spouting, oh, these are my rights, these are my
Mhm.
rights, you just can't paraphrase. You need to
Mm-mm.
understand
The
the
entire
the
context.
band of how that
Mhm.
moves and how that expresses. And I tell people, I said, when you think about all of the leaders, the great leaders that have spoken about, abolishing a lot of these different things, I said it's nothing but full circle. I said because what has happened to other demographics have been televised. What has happened to what's going on in our communities or not until
Mhm.
something violent happens, and then it becomes oh wow, look what's
Yeah.
going on. But this has been going on for quite some time.
Right.
I see they have some signs that say no panhandling, right? Panhandlers will get a fine of $250. And I laugh. I'm like, okay, but if he's standing out here panhandling, but you're gonna charge him $250. But when
Exactly.
you lock him up, the taxpayer is gonna now be paying for the panhandle who only had
I might as well
$3.
put the money in his
I'm like,
hands.
it doesn't make any sense. Like it really doesn't make any sense. And I think it's kind of crazy that it happens like that. But I'm like, you know what? It's okay. This is how important when we need to get out there and vote. We need to know exactly who we're voting for.
Yes.
But we need to get involved in a lot of civic organizations and really like stop looking at who's sitting at the seat. Let's look at those who are surrounding that seat to see how we can move forward, to be inspired, to be able to empower the changes that we want. It's just looking at then and now. It's like, wow, how we sat down and realized that history is getting ready to repeat itself in some sort of way.
I will say this. For the people who are in office, right? Take them off the pedestal.
Absolutely.
You're a public servant. You're not a celebrity. Stop with the photo ops. Stop with the, oh, I showed up to this one community event. Get out in the field.
Yes. Know your people. Know the people.
Exactly.
Yep. Know what the people experience what they're experiencing.
Exactly. And it's like starting off first and foremost for us as people. First thing, taking those people off the pedestal. They're not, even celebrities. Take the celebrities off the pedestal too. They're experts in their field.
Their
right?
field.
We are going to have to talk about how detrimental capitalism is.
Yes, I mean it affects
our community.
It affects so much.
And I'm gonna go back to what you had stated earlier. The system makes us so dependent on it. It's almost like it's actually scary, right? I seen something the other day where a lady had posted that her friend was upset that she gave her fresh eggs, and she was like, "Why are they brown?" And she's like, "This is what eggs look like." We are so far removed from nature. We're so far removed from our neighbor. We're so far removed from our food. We don't know what connection looks like.
No, not at all.
Everybody is in their own little box. Everybody scrolls and has these, very surface level interactions, 5-second interactions online, and you think that is genuine, and it's not.
And right? What has been very, very touching to me, and I do a lot of work in the community, especially with women in domestic violence situations and those that have went through rehab and sober living and transition. The humbleness that comes from that experience.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
I have seen women in the shelters that, were alcoholics, were on pain pills because the trauma was there, right?
Mm-hmm.
They just wanted to have a conversation, some resources, and know that it's going to be all right.
Mm-hmm.
But instead, we make it difficult for them to have the conversation because it's not necessarily always wise to keep living that trauma. Once that trauma comes out, let's remove that trauma, let's exhale, and let's get on to how you become better by being around people to make you better, right? Mm-hmm. The first part, sometimes you have to realize you can get your own way and not realize that advocacy is very important wherever you are. And we should not be judging someone from what they went through. We should be looking at where they're going.
Yeah.
I think that has so much to do with what the Urban League does, the young professionals, when you talk about work development, when you talk about reentry, when you talk about mental health, public health, and even now just bringing together events where people can celebrate who they are organically.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I laugh every morning because I say, in the morning, I think I look like Beyonce, but I, Lord, no, damn, no, I don't look like no Beyonce when I get up in the morning. But girl, I be trying, I be doing my fan, I be trying. I said, I look like Beyonce, but I know organically that's not who I am. Right. But other people don't know how to separate the two. You can want to wish to be one thing, but no, you're not, because you need assistance. And that's what I see in what the Urban League has done and what you've done in the community. So, you work in this community where, they say the LGBT is very shunned against, especially, being in a Bible Belt state. What inspires you to get up every morning and just say, you know what, I'm gonna make this a great day?
You ask my coworkers, I'm the personality hire. They have no idea what I do, and I'm okay with that. So, like, I'm cool with being a personality hire. Like, ooh, like, I just make my job fun.
Okay.
I make it a good time. I have a very I was talking to this lady the other day, and she kind of like switched my brain on a little bit about my job, and I was like, "Oh yeah, I'm a personality hire." Da, 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 da. And I told her what I do, and she was like, "No, baby, you're a perspective hire, because what you do, and giving people their HIV results, and speaking to people that are sex workers, sometimes drug dealers,
Yeah.
individuals who are just now reentering into society." It really puts things into perspective. I don't think I cry at least once a year over somebody. I cry at least once a year. And the funny part about my job is I was the one that brought on the resources. Like, they had little pamphlets here and there, but one thing I got sick of hearing people problems and not having a solution. Like, I'm very much that friend. I'm gonna ask you, are you telling me this to vent, or are you telling me this
because you're looking for a solution?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Because if you want to vent, okay, I'm gonna shut up. I'm gonna be quiet. I'm gonna listen to you. I'm gonna hear you out. But if you're telling me this because you want a solution, oh baby, I'm
the one, right? Let's go.
That's what are we gonna do? Okay, Queen of Pivot. I'm gonna have a backup for my backup for my backup every time. And so it's the same thing at my job. I would listen to people, spill out their entire lives in front of me, and I would do their HIV tests, and I'm sitting there praying like, Lord, please don't let this person be reactive. Right. And after that, and I know what they're doing, how they're doing it, who they're doing it with, I can say, okay, you need condoms, lube, syringes. Here's access to a food pantry. Oh, you could come pick up here once a week, but you could also go over there to go get showers and a laundromat. And then also they have a soup kitchen at 9 a.m. or something like that, right? So for me, what really wakes me up is just like, I don't know. I always say I'm just in a very privileged position. I'm very honored to be in this position. People don't have to tell me. People don't have to be honest with me and tell me their lives. They don't have to be truthful with me. Right. And I think that's one of the most painful things. It hurts talking to people who are like, thank you for talking to me today, for just, being like, they're like, thank you for being you. Like, thank you for talking to me like a human. That is hurtful, because so many people just see them as that surface level. And it's like they don't see them past the drug use. They don't see them past the sex work. They don't see
everything else before they get to that point.
Right. Yeah. Them being houseless. And some of these people are the smartest chemists you will meet. Some of these people are some of the most resourceful people. Like, I've gotten resources from people. They told me, hey, go check this out because they have this opportunity to take this class. And so we really, as a community, and I'll always say this, as a community, we don't have a race war. We have a class war, right? And the ultimate goal is for us to be divided.
Mhm.
And unfortunately, the best way to exploit the working class is through division. And that is how they're going to get the most work,
Work.
was
Mhm.
the most bang for their buck.
Yes, you're absolutely right. You're
Um,
absolutely right.
because that's just how the system rolls. And so really it's going to take a lot of us um over time. It's not going to be an overnight thing. And I think that that's really a not a big issue, but that's going to be our hardest thing because we live in a society that is uh it caters to instant gratification,
Yeah.
right? Every time you hear a ping, every time you get a like, it's catered to instant gratification. But even if you look at the civil rights movement, you know, a good colleague of mine told me that the civil rights movement took 10 years for it to even gain any type of
Any
traction.
type of momentum, right?
Right. And like I'm 28 now. I'm like, what? You mean to tell me I'm gonna be almost 40 before I see some shake? Like that's crazy. So our biggest thing is we have to break out of these patterns.
Right.
And it's going to be the smallest things. It's, you know, for example, this year I actually rented out a garden bed from Freemason Baptist Church.
Mm-hmm.
Their garden bed rental is $40 a year, right? You can donate, you can uh you know, they have a really tight community with some of the houseless in downtown
Okay.
Norfolk. Like they have showers in the back. One of the guys, I think he like keeps his stuff in a shed and stuff. Like they're very like supportive. Um, and so I said to myself, I wanted to do this because I wanted to learn how to grow my own food. I don't know. I don't know what my food looks like, you know, coming out of the ground. Like I do, but I don't.
Okay.
Something that simple will keep me from like when I go shopping, it's like I know what this process looks like. You know, the same thing. I'm less likely to waste something in my garden bed because I grew it myself. Right?
Right, because it's a sense of accomplishment, right? It's
Exactly.
and it's there's so many senses of accomplishment that so many of us have, right? So
Mhm,
let's just think about you being able to identify and grow food, right? That's a big
mhm.
accomplishment. Someone completing rehab, great
Yep.
accomplishment, right? Someone
Mhm.
that has been incarcerated comes home and brings home that first paycheck and
Yep.
their uniform, accomplishment, right? Someone being able to say, you know what, I'm not going to take this abuse anymore and walk away from it
Yeah.
alive and healthy. That's an accomplishment.
Accomplishment.
And we get away from a lot of our community organizations because
Mhm.
community organizations now, what are we doing? We're fighting for money and funding to stay alive, right? You
Mhm.
have some people that don't understand without their support, we're not going to be able to help the ones that you don't want to help. So
Right.
we're going to be out there, feet on the ground, helping those individuals, right? Then you look at how the digital world has changed with AI, you know, making things that are absolutely not acceptable because this is what we see, you know. I
Mhm.
remember when I used to laugh when you would see all these women going, you know, and getting these huge butt injections and all that because that was the thing, right? And now
Mhm.
they walk half of them walking around with concrete, motor oil, and well, baby
Yeah.
oil. Look, can I say baby oil? I don't know. Can I say that? You know, but you know that, but all these things are going on. So, you know, we lose the fact of how civil engagement helps us. I mean, even you know, I was talking to someone about, you know, when you have people set up for a protest, you know, what's the right way to do that? So that you don't have that interference from law enforcement, right?
Right.
What community job fairs and all these things that are out there that we need to have publicized, not just only on social media, but they need to be able to be on TV for free. So the people get up and hear, they can be on the radio. But why you got to pay for things that are going to benefit people, right? Why?
Right.
Let's use our civil engagement anchors to help make these communities better. So that when you walk into certain communities, you're not clutching your purse or worrying if your car going to be there when you come outside because that's what you think it's going to happen, right? Or the girl that walks past you, you're not looking at her like, oh, you know, she's probably one of them, right? You're looking at people in an organic and natural state trying to make them better. and meeting them where they are. But you have to understand the mental health component too. You have to understand the public health. You have to understand the social and economic strifes of every person that you deal with. And we lose that when we talk about community engagement, civil engagement, because people don't want to take the time to
Yeah.
invest in the people. But they're quick to talk about the challenges that they're facing, but they
Yep.
don't want to help with the situation to alleviate the challenges. Let me ask you a question. What do you think is the most effective way to mobilize someone who wants to get into civil engagement like yourself, but don't know what to do?
I think that looks different for every person.
Okay.
Everybody has their own superpower, right?
Okay.
One of my really good coworkers, she's like the fairy of the office, right? So she's vegan, she doesn't eat meat. Her advocacy is believing in, being vegan,
Okay.
right? And so her advocacy might look different from mine, right?
Okay.
How she mobilizes might look different from mine. And I think that we really need to start to break down how important it is for us, for our allies to really step up to the plate and say, I am protecting my neighbor, right? Because we're all in community.
Right. We're all community, right?
And
I'm protecting my neighbor. Mm-hmm.
right. And so when we are doing these protests and these boycotts, it looks different for everyone. Like, not everyone can boycott Walmart because they don't have access to a grocery store. That's the only thing that they have access to.
Right.
Not everyone can boycott Target because sometimes that is the only thing they have access to.
That's
right? So the ones that can do,
right.
And that's why I say I'm in a very privileged position. I have an apartment, I have my own car, I have a degree, I have a salaried job, and I have healthcare. That is a very privileged position in comparison to someone who might live in a neighborhood, or if they don't have if they are a houseless individual, they might not have access to those things.
Yeah.
Right. So for me, my form of advocacy is for example, supporting those who, I hate to say supporting those who need support, but even like in showing up for you for that one event. It was a beautiful event, and it gave me perspective on things that I can bring to other organizations that I know about. Like, for example, you have Dynamic Divas, there's also Teens with a Purpose, right? So you did this event. The event was for girls ages 8 to 15. I knew, or was it 8 to 13?
8 to 13.
8 to 13.
Mm-hmm.
I knew that there was probably going to be a good subsection of people at your event that might need the resources from Teens with a Purpose. And so to me, my advocacy is, I don't know what I don't know. You don't know what you don't know. Right? But if I can come across somebody, hey, you might be interested in this. Right? And that might give that young lady an outlet artistically, or give them an outlet to connect with others their age.
Right.
Having a safe adult and and that's very important for kids, because nowadays I feel like it really hurts to see that children don't really have a space that is catered towards a certain
that's gonna have to be another show, honey, about these children. That's gonna have to be another show.
I remember y'all, I forgot the lady's name. I think it was like Miss Reed or something like that you had worked with. Mm-hmm. And how one of the children had created a drawing, and they basically thought like they basically like didn't love themselves, like they called themselves, they didn't like how they
that was hard. Yeah.
And that's hard. And in those developmental stages, that's a very hard age. But once again, what is the environment that child is in? What does that look like? Does that child have access to food? Is their mom always working? Is their dad always working? Right? Are they living with grandparents? Are they living with their parents? Are they living in a stable household that now they feel like, they're not getting the love or the attention or the things that they need in order for them to feel, whole and step outside and be proud of who they are. But what do we do? We create that bubble. We create that community of women around them to say, no, baby, like I promise you, you are gorgeous. You are beautiful, and you have been made in God's eye, and all of the great things, and you love on that child the way they need to be loved on, right? And the same thing, connecting those people with Teens with a Purpose. That one girl, she had a book, right? And she wanted to share her story. Okay, well, let's bring that over here into this space where Teens with a Purpose has the National Poet Laureate. And then you give children an outlet to say, I accomplished something. Like we said,
that's what it is, right? That's just what it is. We need to
stop giving them a false sense of, stop giving these
purpose, for lack of a better word, right? Make the, and that's where you're important in the community, and what you do. Before we get ready to wrap up, tell people where they can find the Urban League, or where they can go get information or become a member of the Urban League. Like, give us the information of where they can go.
Absolutely, positively. So you can go, if you go on Google, it is Urban League of Hampton Roads. You can always Google us. On Instagram, we're pretty active on Instagram. Our Instagram is ULHRVA. We also have ULHRYP. That is for the YPs. Like I said, I'm running for president. So I would love for, people who are seeing this, watching this, if you have programs or you have a special industry, come join us in the movement. We're really looking forward to y'all's energy to really just create that community that we really need. And I know that we have in this area. So check us out on Instagram. You can also check us out on Facebook. But yeah.
All right. So, we're going to have to have you come back for a second podcast, because we're going to jump into some other stuff too. We're going to be getting some deep and heavy stuff. But all that's listening today, I definitely want you guys to heed the suggestions, words about advocacy and what we need to do to build better communities. Please take this time to thank my guest, Miss Alana Evans, for sharing her knowledge and wisdom and her forethought of things that she's seen, things that she's experienced, and how she's moving that forward to continue to inspire through advocacy. Now, the Diva's always trying to get out here and do something that's correct. Now, I'm a work in progress just like everybody else, because the only book that's the best book is the Bible, because the Bible gives us the lessons just before life, right? But I want you to understand the importance of gratitude and how gratitude gives you resilience. When you are grateful for what you have, you become more resilient and steadfast in keeping that. But you must understand that you have to get to your resources to continue to be grateful. Some of the resources you come across may not be the best resources in the world. So you need to be very mindful of who you bring in your circle. It takes a community to raise your heart, mind, and soul. You must be spiritually aligned to move forward so that you can progress in a way that only that you touch the heart of yourself, but you touch the heart of the person for you. Remember, when one eats, you eat. Extend that olive branch. Become a part of the solution. Get in touch with the Urban League and the young professionals. Get caught up and involved with a nonprofit. And most importantly, continue to walk in faith, because you can't do this all by yourself. So inhale, exhale. Until next week, I'm the Diva Danielle. You just watched The Dynamic Perspective. You know what it is. Do what you do. Be safe. Have a great holiday weekend. Until next time.
Welcome to the Dynamic Perspective Podcast.